Okay, so let me start over here. As Evan said, my name is Sharon Padget. I'm a former science teacher. I taught science for 18 years. And then this past year, I moved to the ESL position at Atumwa High School. I was in the same position that Joni was, as she talked about earlier. About a year and a half ago, we got this email that we're we want to have science teachers and math teachers and ELA teachers and social studies teachers come together and form this community of practice. And so over the last year, during the summer and so on, I had the wonderful opportunity of collaborating and connecting and conversing with many of the Iowa science teachers to develop an e-curriculum that we all could contribute to. However, what happened is that those collaborations and connections started to become friendships, like Joni said. They started to become colleagues that you could talk to and feel safe with, and it was really a true collaborative effort that I think every teacher would hope that they would have sometime in their career, but that Iowa COPI can provide. So when I came to the ESL position at Atumwa High School, this gave me the amazing opportunity to not only use the science COPI group to connect and collaborate and converse with, but also some of the math folks, some of the ELA folks, and some of the social studies folks. So that's kind of been my journey and in using COPI resources. So what you see here on the screen, I think is a real truth as far as today's students. Kids always like to link with each other, whether it be through text messaging, a lot of times through social media and so on, especially Facebook. They link and then they lurk, and so they try to decide if they want to belong to something. If it's worth it, they then move to join it. If they don't, then they move on to something else. So in this next graphic here, you'll see that teachers are the same way, adults are the same way, but we kind of move back and forth a little bit depending on our level of comfort. Sometimes you're a leader, sometimes you're a facilitator, depending on even what your administrative staff says that you are. And then sometimes, like for example, on Twitter, a lot of the chats, you have your lurkers. And sometimes with Iowa COPI, you have those lurkers that want to belong but aren't quite sure how to do that. So in looking at this graphic here, you have all kinds of people that have parts of an active community, but when you bring them together, it makes a wonderful community where you depend on each other and you connect with each other, depending on what your needs are. I'm going to go ahead and go to the next slide there. Okay, so with Iowa COPI, you have a lot of choices, and I think that's one of the things that I really want to stress to folks is you can see here by this graphic there are 4 different levels of participation, and it really depends on how much you want to be involved or how much you not want to be involved. So you have someone who is at the core, and that's kind of where a small group of us are right now, where we're facilitating, trying to bring more people in. We make decisions. We help facilitate meetings. We meet as a group to see what kinds of curriculum we want to bring in and take out. Then you have contributors. DS is a bigger group of people. This is what we're kind of doing today. We're asking you to consider being a contributor, maybe even a collaborator, maybe even just a consumer of the lessons that have already been put out there. But one of the things that's really nice about COPI is that you choose your level of engagement. It's not dictated to you. I want to go ahead and go to the next slide. So again, you decide what you want. You have the beginner or the novice, which is kind of on the outside of the circle looking in. And then through collaboration, interactions, and engaging with members who are already members of the COPI, you start to develop this community of practice and this connections throughout the state. I know as an ESL teacher, one of the things that's really been a driving force in my teaching is being able to connect with content experts, and that's kind of our center folks. So if I have a problem with the math, especially with the algebra, I can connect with someone in the COPI on math and say, hey, how did you do this? Because math is not my expert background. Or for example, right now I'm doing global citizenship in the social studies area. How are some of those lessons being done? So again, learning, to become part of this collaborative effort, which is not usually done right now in education. It's getting there, but I think COPI is one of those things that teachers will be very happy to be a part of, because it's not a silo, but more of a flat classroom. And so instead of being one person, you're now a community of people. I'm going to go ahead and go to the next one. So, this graphic here, I mean, I love this graphic. When you do it together, you go a lot farther. You learn a lot more. You practice together. But at the same time, you always have that connection with your colleagues. That hey, I know here for a fact last week when I was out of the classroom, one of the things that was really nice was that the COPI lessons that my students were doing, I was able to connect them with other teachers because I wasn't there in the classroom. So when you go together, it's a lot easier than trying to go out alone. Go ahead and go to the next one. I think that's the last one, maybe. Okay. So here's a little bit of the history. And I was part of the pilot grant there with the 40 teachers, math, science, social studies, and language arts. We started last spring, coming together, and then we split up into our content area groups. We started meeting throughout the summer, going through the curriculum that we wanted to I guess you would say, tweak. And I have to tell you that the conversations were awesome. And I think that's one of the big things about Iowa COPI, is that it's the level of trust and professionalism that you have with your colleagues. I know sometimes when you get into professional development at your own schools, there's always somebody that seems to take over the meeting, somebody's ideas that are never heard. I never get that feeling with Iowa COPI. I always feel like somebody's listening to me, somebody's taking my ideas into account. Somebody's always saying, hey, maybe we could do it this way, or I like your idea. And then there was the initial courses for collaboration. Each area content has a group of courses. For example, in science, we have things such as matter and forces and chemical properties. And you have a group of teachers that their one main goal is to make that curriculum accessible, and also do it in a collaborative fashion. So like Joni was talking about earlier, I can call up Joni and Marcia and Gary and my other colleagues and say, hey, this link isn't working, or this didn't go right, this doesn't go as well as yours did. How did you do it? So and now we're at the point where we're beginning what we call our ramp up. We have a new home there. It's like you see there on the slide, it says AEA K-12 online. And so we're kind of hoping now that teachers from across the state will consider joining the Iowa community of practice and become part of this wonderful collaborative effort. So with that, then I will turn it back over to Nancy and Evan.